All right, Shalom. You reached the He Prayed channel. My name is Isaac Mawath. But first and foremost, I want to say, Call Halayim Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai Bahashem Harakah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, 7:13:19, where I learned this truth from, who rule well. Salutations to the Bakiyar, the elect, 144,000. That's 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 tribes of Israel consisting of so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous of America. 144,000 being the governing body within the one-third. The rest of the one-third comprises of elect men, women, and children. Shalom to those Israelites scattered due to the diaspora and also the triangular trade. So our people come looking like different ethnicities, having various complexions. So it's not a black thing. We're not the black Hebrew Israelites. We're just Hebrew Israelites. Shalom to those that die, and it's true. It says the dead should be raised up first. Those that will be accompanying Yahweh Shah on his return, including our King, King Mashah, who is King David. And as always, it's an honor and privilege, honor and blessing to continue to do this work. The water Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem Harakah Kodash for answering my prayers and permitting me to do such. Baba Kashah Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem Harakah Kodash. Allow this to be an edifying lesson to at least one member of the elect. So it's gonna be another AI video. This is dealing with Israel, the state of how they're really the Amalekites, biblically, spiritually, and they're determined to be the least of the flock, and they have a long history of false flag operations, and I believe through the spirit it's gonna be a false flag on the Abraham Lincoln that's gonna draw America into this massive war, and it's gonna be orchestrated by the Mossad, right? And that's why you're seeing a delay in a military action against Iran by the United States, because they know the consequence of such an action. First precept, Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 45. It says, "Therefore hear ye the counsel of Yahweh that he hath taken against Babylon," which, Babylon, going into that word in the Hebrew, Babel, which means confusion, which is a state that a particular empire is in when it's entrenched in wickedness. And two notable were the Babylonians. And as America has adopted the same characteristics, it will be like a child learning from its mother, which will make that child that mother's daughter. So America's the daughter of Babylon. It's a place of immense confusion. It says in his purposes that he had purpose against the land of the Chaldeans, which the Chaldeans were the upper echelon of the Babylonian society. They were the witches and warlocks. They were the pedophiles. As we're starting to see, that spirit being re-emitted into the world as, you know, Esau is being exposed, especially with the whole Epstein, which is all tied in together, whether it be the Pizzagate, whether it be, Epstein and Epstein Island and, his compounds throughout America, or something that's been swept under the rug and never mentioned again is the Brooklyn tunnels, which there's a massive underground criminal syndicate that is running amok and is led by these Chaldeans, which are these rich elite bankers, because they're the modern day equivalent of those witches and warlocks in the ancient Babylonian society. It says, surely the least of the flock. So the least of the flock, going back to Amalek, which are the small hats today. Not all of them. Some of them actually do go back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But, the majority of those individuals that live in that land that shouldn't be there, they're from the tribe of Amalek. It says, shall draw them out. So they're going to draw out a bigger nation, to fight alongside or to have this stronger, bigger nation, to fight its war for them. It says, surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. So in consequence, they're both going to be destroyed. Not only the state of Israel is going to be destroyed, which is easy. It only takes one nuke, or America being destroyed, the United States, which is easy. It will only take one nuke, you know. But we know, according to the scriptures, according to prophecy, is going to be way more than one nuke. And what I mean by one nuke, I mean, you only have to hit the nuclear power plant in Dimona, Israel, to make that land uninhabitable, just as they did with Gaza in the beginning of that conflict when they flooded Gaza with seawater, making it uninhabitable. Same thing with America. All they have to do is hit Yellowstone, slowly but surely waking up to become active volcano, which is a super volcano, which would make America uninhabitable. So Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua set these places up. As soon as, the arrogance causes them to get beside themselves, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua is going to give them the belt. It says at the noise, which that noise represents the destruction, because it's going to be, I looked it up, 250 plus decimals, which is not even sound anymore. It was going into about, how many decibels does a nuclear detonation produce, So it estimated around 250 decibels, which is allowed, so loud that I think it said you couldn't hear it. You would just be, it just instantly kill you. So just imagine 200 million warheads hitting this place. You're going to hear the destruction of America, man. It says that the noise of the taking of Babylon, the earth is moved, right? And it's going to be moved to and fro as a drunk, man, you know, but it's not going to destroy the whole earth. The earth is going to abide forever. The world that is going to destroy is the so-called white man's world and white supremacy, or I should say, Edomite supremacy. It says, and the cry is heard among the nations, right? Because people are going to be taken back. They're going to be, some are going to be joyous. Some are going to be, what's the word? I'll just say sad, for lack of better words, because no longer do they have headquarters for them to participate in wickedness. Because that's basically what America is a land in which you could do whatever the hell you want against uh, biblical laws. Going back to Copilot keywords in the Hebrew for the word counsel, etzah, plan. So Yahweh Shem Yahushua has a plan set in place, a strategy, right? Deliberated advice. This is Yahweh's strategic blueprint, not random judgment. So what the Heavenly Father is strategically doing to you so-called white people is going to lead to, a very overkillish, if that's a word, type judgment, man. Purposes, Shaba, thoughts, design, schemes, what he has engineered against Babylon. So everything that's happening to America is being engineered by Yahweh, by Shem Yahushua, using both sides, the left and the right, or I should say the right and the left, to his advantage, right? I think the reason why I say that way is because, Hebrew is written left to right, not right to left. Wait, hold on, right? No. English is written left to right, and Hebrew is written right to left. But the word for least, taza small, younger, insignificant in rank or size, which, that's Amalek, as I believe he was the nephew. The word flock, tasan, flock of sheep, here used metaphorically for a nation or military contingent, for draw them out, idea of dragging out, leading out, like pulling prey out of hiding, and that's what Esau does too. When you think about animal catching and, poaching and, hunting and, you know, animal, what do they call it? Animal protective services. When they get the pole with the string at the end and they wrap it around the animal's head, the beast's head, and they're trying to pull it out of whatever confinement that animal was in. That's nearly symbolic of what Israel's doing to America now. It says military provocation, forced engagement, And that 12-day war was part of that provocation. But now we're entering into the forced engagement, man, where it's going to be a major conflict, major loss of life. GMS style breakdown council locked in. The Most High already has a counsel and purpose against Babylon, which Babylon is America. This is pre-decided judgment, not reactive. So this judgment was set before the foundation of the earth, right? Which these damn devils, they want you to believe the earth is millions and billions of years old, and it's not. It says Babylon is not acting alone. The judgment is against Babylon and the land of the Chaldeans. But the mechanism is the least of the flock. So what's going to get it started, the mechanism is going to be Israel, the state of, right? And the land of the Chaldeans is talking about is talking about America, because America is nothing but a corporation of the rich elite bankers. You know, that's the reason why it flies a variation or the modernized version of the East Indian Company flag, which is an entity owned by the Rothschilds. Least of the flock as trigger, a smaller, seemingly weaker nation or faction is used as the bait trigger that draws out the bigger empire into a conflict that leads to desolation, which, you know, out of any number that they could have choose, they only wanted to choose one. And out of all, they chose one named after the U.S. President Abraham Lincoln, you know, which a lot of those Republicans, they have a disdain for. So what's keeping the Mossad from false flagging the Abraham Lincoln and killing 5,000 American sailors and destroying well over, 13 to 15 billion worth of equipment, maybe even more, just to get America involved in the war against Iran. You know, as you see the spirit that the Most High is putting on Donald Trump, he's backpedaling, man. And then you see the spirit that the Most High is putting on Benjamin, not a Jew. You know, he's egging it on. And this war is going to have all you YNs being drafted, man. You know, because it's not just going to be against Iran. Iran is going to have allies too. And they already have de facto nuclear capabilities because of their allies. Shared desolation. He shall make their habitation desolate with them. The small instigator and the big empire both end up judged. And that's what's playing out in real time, man. You know, you can look in the news, you can look in the newspaper, and you can see it. 49 and 20. This is Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 20. It says, therefore hear the counsel of Yahweh. And now it's not talking about Babylon, it's talking about Edom, because they're one and two in the same. You know, Edom is the modern day Babylon, man. It says, therefore hear the counsel of Yahweh that he hath taken against Edom, which Edom is the true identity of, these so-called white people who started calling themselves white in 1681 in Virginia due to the Bacon rebellions, in which you had Irish and Italians, you know, and Scottish, and certain of those uh, Israelites that looked like they were Edomites, but they weren't. Um, they weren't included within that number until the Bacon rebellions, man. Which that was those Irish, Italians, etc., joining forces with on arrival named the Hebrew slaves. So they didn't want that. So what is Esau about? He's about dividing and conquering. And that's his MO. And that's what he has done throughout many sectors in society, among nations and among people. Divide and conquer. Right? So that's where they begin to call themselves white, which they're not white, they're red. Their blood shows forth through their skin, they're translucent. It says that he had purpose against the inhabitants of Teman, right? Which Teman is another Edomite tribe, which is known for its wisdom. So modern day would be those Edomites that are in Germany, because Nazi Germany is basically what produced um, a lot of this technology that you see now in the world. And they have a high standard of technology, right? It says, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. So going back to the least of the flock, which is going to be Israel, man. It says, surely he shall make their habitations desolate with them. So what's going to end up happening is they're both going to be destroyed, America and Israel. So going back to AI to break down, same formula, different target, which is really the same target. The exact structure used on Edom in Jeremiah 49:20 is reused on Babylon, because Babylon, America, is the modern day America, the modern day ancient Babylon that is ran by, but now ran by Esau, the Edomites. In Jeremiah 50:54, Edom context, Edom equals descendants of Esau, brother of Jacob, which Jacob, whose name was later changed to Israel due to the wrestling of the angel, his descendants are you so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth due to biblical prophecy, right? Long-standing adversarial relationship with Israel, right? Because he was rejected of his birthright, man. And that's the reason why he has such a hatred toward the Heavenly Father, man, in his creation. He's throwing a temper tantrum. The word for breakdown for Teman, a chief regent of Edom, symbol of his wise men and warriors, which, like I said, that's modern day Germany, which the Third Reich Germany was ran by Edomites that were Amalekites. Now that is coming out, man, which Adolf Schicklgruber was a son, a bastard of one of the Rothschilds, and the whole Holocaust was an intentional lie. And the intention was to set up the false state of Israel, and just as Hitler ventured to Argentina, these same people are still there to this day trying to expand there and create uh, another state of Amalek there, you know. But continuing, it says copy paste judgment pattern. The least of the flock formula is first attached to Edom, then applied to Babylon, showing a reusable prophetic pattern. A small element within among the nations becomes a hook that pulls a larger power into destruction. And that's what you're gonna see. That's what we're seeing in real time, man. You know, America being pulled into this destruction, whether they know it, believe it or not. You would think they will know something, being so hesitant. After being so confident in their military prowess. You know, after the 12-Day War, and them allegedly destroying Iran's nuclear capabilities, which Iran is those Persians and those Elamites are very smart. I shouldn't say the word smart because smart doesn't mean intelligence; it means pain. But those Iranians are very wise. So one of those bombs, which is typical, didn't detonate. So what those Iranians did was reverse engineered it. So now Iran got GBU 57 bunker busters. And the irony is if they use those bunker busters on the bunker that Trump is building at the White House right now. Because it's not a sin, because then Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah will be in sin. For you to use your enemies, weapons against them. Because that's exactly what Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah is going to do in the spirit. Right? This is the book of Obadiah. I'm going to start at the top. The vision of Obadiah. Thus saith Yahweh concerning Edom. So this is concerning you Edomites. We have heard a rumor, which is a report from Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. And right now there are many ambassadors, but the one in history is Abdul Nazir, the president of Egypt, who made a statement how the Jews leave black and come back white, right? Which doesn't align with prophecy, because according to prophecy, God himself is going to set his people back in that land, not no document, right? It says, arise ye and let us rise up against her in battle, right? So the Most High is putting the spirit on these heathen nations to rise up against America in war. It says, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. And it doesn't mean physically, it means that they're looked down upon. They're despised. People look at them in disgust, right? It says, thou art greatly despised. The pride of thy heart have deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock. And the Most High allowed them to still carry certain titles, like Caucasian, which means cave dweller, and allowing you to just see part of their spirit is having the spirit of a man of the field, right? And to be cunning hunters and to be drinkers of blood and associated with the dead and skulls and bones. And when you go into historical, uh, pretty much, historical people that did documentaries and things of that nature, like the book The 13th Tribe. It tells you the decadent, low base, you know, spirit and lifestyle that they lived, and it mirrors what's going on here in America, right? It says, "Whose habitation is high." He has these skyscrapers, these high rises, these vertigos that save in his heart. Which, when you go into the scriptures, your heart is your mind, right? Who shall bring me down to the ground? They don't think that anybody can ever fuck with them. They can't get taken out of power, and they're relying on their military capability. But really, deep down inside, they're relying on the nations that they conquered. Because even when you go into these gyms, if you still go, you know, these 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 heathens are weak, man. They're not on the level of Jake at any level. So their confidence is the fact that they have you as slaves to go fight their wars, because it's you Israelites that are on the front lines fighting this damn devil's battles. All, all while they treat you like the proverbs and bywords they call you. That's why these heathens tell you, soul brother, go home. This is not your wall, right? Verse 4 says, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, which that's their mascot, the eagle, the bald eagle, what do they call it? It starts with an H. The harpy eagle, I believe, is the biggest one. You got the harpy eagle, you got the bald eagle, and these birds are very proud and very destructive and kill for sport. Oftentimes when you watch the Animal Planet dealing with eagles, they'll just grab a mountain goat and fly it at high altitude and just drop it just because it's too close to its territory, man. Little example on how America is bombing those boats in Venezuela, which they don't. They're covering it up, man. Ain't no way in hell that they'll keep trying to use boats to deliver any type of narcotics if they're shooting hellfire missiles at them, man. It don't make no sense. But if you feel like you're doing something in the right, like you're actually doing something lawful in their what they call economic zones, their waters in which they fish economically, you know, you're more um, inclined to take the risk because you got to eat, you got to live. But here comes this damn devil blockading and murdering, your people. And then, the whole stories with the immigration and them being chartered off in C-17 cargo planes. Well, rumor has it is that they were pushing those people still shackled, out of the plane over the now they call Gulf of America. And, those bodies have been washing up on shore, still handcuffed, still in, whatever article of clothing that they may have gave them, or, it was known that they were the ones that were the immigrants that, they alleged to be the deported, right? It says, and though thou set thy nest, which is their defenses, that's why they have a space force. Those satellites they're all weapons, man. They're all surveillance tools. Some have weapons on them. Some have tungsten rods that, propel to Earth at high velocity to cause great destruction. They got nuclear weapons up there, despite them saying whatever madness that they WWE match and commentary say in the mainstream media, you know, they also have weapons to combat Yahweh Shah's return, which really Yahweh Shah, if you wanted to, could just appear. But there's a particular trajectory that he's coming, that they're trying to prepare themselves for. And that's probably why they want Greenland, because Greenland is the east of the United States of America, man. And what's in Greenland? Their Space Force, and if you've been paying attention over the decades, you know that Russia ain't coming from the east. They coming from Alaska, from the north. You know, China ain't coming from the east. They coming from the Pacific. They coming through the same way, the same area in which Russia is coming, and that's why you see Russia and China doing patrols off that Alaskan coast, right? It says, "Thence will I bring thee down." So when he set his nest among the stars was in 1969 when they did the space missions. Which really those were just missions testing rocketry in orbit, because they never went to the moon. They never went to Mars. They can't get past the Van Allen belt. So, when they talk about certain shit, it's all deception. That's where you get the word NASA, man. It means deception, right? And even with the whole, what are they, Blue Orbit or Blue Origin, with the ex CEO or owner of Amazon, Jeff Bezos. You know, when you look up, when you look at that, the landing when they returned to Earth, it was all staged, man. They'd even get the timing right when they opened the door. It was like they were supposed to open it from the outside, but I guess the people that were in the inside didn't get the cue, and they ended up opening it up from the inside. And it was like, no, we're not ready yet. So they had to, be like, oh fuck, oh I'm sorry. They try to get their look back together for the whole enactment, right? But going back to AI, breakdown small among the heathen. Edom is made small. The word is quatan, despised yet dangerous, right? Pride plus deception. Edom's pride and treachery are the reasons for its fall. Its smallness doesn't mean harmlessness. Overlay. A nation can be small in size but large in impact through cunning, alliances, and betrayal, right? It says Amalek inside Edom's house, typological lease of the flock. We won't tie Amalek to any modern group. Just stay in the text and typology. Precept 4, Genesis 36. Book of Genesis, chapter 36, verse 12 through 16. It says, and Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. So Amalek is the nephew of Esau. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife, and these are the sons of Ruel, Nahath, and Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were the sons of Beshemath, Esau's wife, and these were the sons of Aholibama, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zibeon, Esau's wife, and she bare to Esau Jeush and Jalem and Korah. These were dukes, and another term for a duke would be a president of the sons of Esau. So Esau, he didn't deal with kings. Well, in certain of his society, he dealt with kings, but a lot of that was Jakes, it was Israelites. Esau, he deals with, terms, presidents, dukes, Caesars. It says the son, which, there's of course exceptions to the rule. It says the sons of Eliphaz, the firstborn son of Esau, Duke Teman, Duke Omar, Duke Zephro, Duke Kenaz, Duke Korah, Duke Gatham, and Duke Amalek, right? These are the dukes that came of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These were the sons of Adah. Right. So going back to AI, it says Amalek equals grandson of Esau. Amalek is literally a branch of Edom inside the Edomite family tree. Embedded within Edom, this makes Amalek a subset of Edom, not a separate, unrelated nation. We're going to go to Numbers, chapter 24. Verse 20, it says, and when he looked on Amalek, he took up his parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, which was uh, come against the nation of Israel, right? It says, but his latter end, and we're in the latter end, we're in the latter times, shall be that he perish forever, right? So the end for those tiny hats is that they're going to perish forever, man. And then it lines up with Obadiah, I think 18 and 21. Uh, Obadiah verse 18, it says, in the house of Jacob shall be a fire, in the house of Joseph a flame, which represents the northern or the southern and northern kingdom, in the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Yahweh hath spoken it. So that also lines up with Numbers. Let me get back to it. Numbers 24, chapter. Numbers chapter 24, verse 20, where it says, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever. So this is repeated, and as soon as you reveal the truth of what the scriptures say, then these demons, these devils, they find out it's against them, then that's when they say, oh, they don't believe in it. It's just a fairy tale. That's the a way that you could, force these devils to reveal themselves. But it says, first of the nations, often read as first in hostility against Israel, earliest, foremost in attacking, not necessarily largest in size. Perish forever. Amalek's destiny is total erasure, no long-term survival. So that's the destiny of you demons, man. Overlay with least of the flock. Esau is made small among the heathen. Amalek is first in hostility, but destined to be wiped out. Typologically, Amalek can be seen as a hyper-aggressive, which that's Israel, militarized subset of Edom, which Edom just isn't America, it's also those European nations as well. Small but extremely hostile, in which group of so-called white people are the most hostile. It's those tiny hats. As you see with the whole the geo side that happened, and that's still happening. This is Deuteronomy chapter 25. Let me see, 17. Verse 17, it says, remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way, when ye were come forth out of Martazarium, how he met thee by the way, and smote the hindmost of thee, which is the back of the traveling party. It says, even at that, it's like even all that were feeble behind thee. And that's what predators do. They attack the weak. So that word feeble means weak. When thou was faint and weary, and he feared not the Most High, so he didn't give a shit. He wanted revenge, and now he's gonna get it. He's gonna get what he wants, but it's not gonna end the way he think it. The way he think it's gonna end. It's gonna end with his enslavement, well, his destruction, his embarrassment, his enslavement, and then his annihilation, his extermination. Verse 19, it says, therefore it shall be, when Yahweh thy power hath given thee rest from all thy enemies round about, which that's going to be in the kingdom, and the land which Yahweh thy power giveth thee for inheritance to possess it, that thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven, thou shalt not forget it. So there's going to be a time when there ain't going to be no more tiny hats. They're going to be blot out in remembrance for all their fucking wickedness, man. Going back to AI tactics, Amalek attacks the weak, the stragglers, cowardly, asymmetric warfare. And that's what they've been doing to those Palestinians, man. You know, in certain nations throughout the Middle East. Ambush mentality, not frontal. That's why they do covert co-op operations. You know, they do things in secret, false flags, etc., etc. Honorable warfare. This is opportunistic, predatory strategy. Overlay, a least of the flock type nation doesn't win by size, it wins by manipulation, surprise, and targeting vulnerabilities. I'm going to the book of Sirach, or Ecclesiasticus in your Apocrypha. I think it said 12. Nah, it was 10, 12. This is Sirach chapter 12, verse 10. It says, never trust thy enemy. So, you know, throughout the scriptures, it talks about us being delivered from our enemies. This is Luke chapter 1, verse 67, which it says, Zacharias' prophecy. It reads, and his father Zacharias was filled with the Holy Ghost, Spirit of truth, and prophesied, saying, blessed be Yahweh, the power of Yashar'Allah, for he hath visited and redeemed, brought back his people, and have raised up a horn, which horn represents power of salvation for us in the house of his servant David, right? And that horn is David's son, Solomon, coming back as Yahweh Shai, as he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets. So that's how the Heavenly Father speaks to you people in the world, is by his prophets, which have been since the world began, right? So, you know, their spirit is subject onto that office. So if you're a prophet in your past life, you're going to be one in this life. 71, it says that we should be saved from our enemies. So we have enemies. And from the hand of all that hate us. And that's these heathens, starting with these so-called white people, these Edomites. They hate the true Israelites, man. You so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous. It says to perform the mercy promised to our fathers and to remember his holy covenant, the oath which he sware to our father Abraham, that he would grant unto us that we, being delivered out of the hand of our enemies, might serve him without fear. And that's going to be the kingdom of heaven, when we're delivered out of the hands of these fucking devils, man. But as the scriptures say, we have to wait. Going back to the book Sirach, chapter 12, verse 10, it says, "Never trust thy enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness." Right, because it gets worse and worse. Though he humble himself, and this is what makes him the devil, right? And go crouching, trying to be fake humble, pretend humble, yet take good heed and beware of him. You always gotta have the minds, uh, have your mind set on the fact that, or have your mind set on what spirit that you're dealing with, man. Because these heathens, they come with certain spirits, characteristics, that comprise their makeup, who they are. Right. And Esau, he has the spirit of being a liar and a deceiver. And that's what he was given to fulfill prophecy. So you can't take everything this devil says with a grain of salt. Because, he's not the angel of light that he portrays. It says, "And thou shalt be unto him as if thou hast wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust have not been altogether wiped away." Right, his wickedness is still there because it's in him. Set him not by thee, and that's what happened a few times with our people. They let Esau get in the ranks until Esau eventually takes over. "Least when he have overthrown thee, stand up in thy place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat. And thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. Who will pity a charmer that is bitten with the serpent?" Right. And that's why we don't have no pity on you people that trust in this damn devil, man. And he ends up biting your ass. Right in the ass. It says, "Or any such as come nigh wild beast." Right. Playing with dangerous animals, man. It's like playing with this damn devil. You're playing with a dangerous animal. So when, he exerts his nature on you, who should pity, man? It says, "So one that goeth to a sinner and is defiled with him in his sins, who will pity? For a while he will," I ain't gonna say nothing on that. "For a while he will abide with thee, but if thou begin to fall, he will not tarry. The enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagineth how to throw thee into a pit, into destruction," man. "He will weep with his eyes, but if he find opportunity, he will not be satisfied with blood." Right, because he wants to utterly destroy you. If adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first. And though he pretend to help thee, yet shall he undermine thee. And that's what they have always done, man. I'm not going to go into it, but he acts like he's helping, but only to a certain extent. Because at the end, it's all to undermine you, It says, "He will shake his head and clap his hands and whisper much and change his countenance." Right? Going back to the breakdown, it says, enemy's nature is consistent Even when he humbles himself, his wickedness is still there. Deception as a weapon, smiles, words of peace. They're always talking about peace, but yet they only experience between 18, 20 years of actual peace and apparent alliance can mask long-term hostility, and even that NATO alliance, you see there's hostility within it. I think even the French are trying to get back in bed with Russia. Germany is talking about doing its own thing, man. It says, overlay with Amalek Edom, the text gives a general principle that fits Amalek's pattern, smiling outwardly, striking when you are weak. It says how a smaller militarized nation can drag a larger ally into war, false flag style pattern. I'll keep this conceptual, not tied to any modern state. Conceptual pattern, dependence on alliance. The smaller nation secures a defense pact or strong political military backing from a larger empire. And that's the relationship you have with America and Israel. 2, provocation, false flag. The smaller nation engages in covert operations. And this is what Israel has always done, man. Staged attacks or aggressive moves that can be blamed on a third party. And now that third party is going to be the IRGC, the Iranian Revolution Guard Corps, to initiate a broader war. And it's going to be decided tomorrow when Benjamin Netanyahu goes and has that emergency meeting with Donald Trump concerning this war with Iran. 3, manufactured casus belli, the larger allies presented with evidence, real or fabricated. In this case, it's the building of nuclear weapons, just like you had in Iraq. That was something that Israel did too, accuse Saddam Hussein of having weapons of mass destruction. Because mind you, these damn devils, they want to expand to broader Israel, man. It says that an enemy has attacked their partner, triggering treaty obligations. Emotional leverage, appeals to shared values, defense of democracy, security, or never again narratives push the larger nation into action. And that's what they had with the whole October 7th. But, people are so woken up to these damn devils, they didn't even give a shit. They had to force you. They had to force themselves upon the people to try to gain some sort of sympathy. There's 2 people on the planet that force themselves on others, and that's so-called white man and so-called black woman. Verse 5, it says, mutual destruction trajectory. The conflict escalates beyond what the small nation can control, and the big empire also becomes a target of judgment, retaliation, which that's going to end up happening in real time when America is getting hit with nuclear missiles. It says both end up damaged or destroyed, right? This is Proverbs chapter 26. Verse 24 says, he that hateth disassembleth with his lips, and layeth up deceit within him. When he speaketh fair, believe him not. For There are 7 abominations in his heart, whose hatred is covered by deceit. His wickedness shall be showed before the whole congregation, right? And the congregation in this sense, in this topic, would be the nations of the world. Starting to see Esau for who he really is, man. It says, "Whoso diggeth a pit shall fall therein." And Esau has been digging these pits for all these nations, and now he's gonna fall in a pit. And he that rolleth a stone, it will return upon him. A lying tongue hateth those that are afflicted by it. Right. Because why else would you have to lie if you didn't hate that person? And a flattering mouth worketh ruin. You know? And that's why you shouldn't be a person that loves to be flattered. You know? Going back to AI, it says, hidden hatred, open speech. A nation can speak peace while planning war. And that's exactly what the I am the mode of, what do they call it? The MO, the mode of operation that America has, man. They speak peace while planning war. You know, which reminds me of the scripture in Psalms. His words were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. 55. This is Psalms chapter 55, verse 21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. But war was in his mind. So he was coming with that deception, man. Acting like everything's all good. Right? His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. It was the next scripture anyway. Let me finish that scripture up then too. Uh, we can get it real quick. What did it say? 20, 20, 21. Let me go up a verse. This is Psalms chapter 55, verse 20. He had put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. Right? And for the most part, people just want to live in peace, man. But mind you, this spirit that is on Esau is a spirit of wickedness, arrogancy, deception, sexual deviancy, murder. Everything that's contrary to the scriptures is what's in his spirit. You know, it says, he hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant, and he breaks all his treaties, all his peace agreements. He don't keep his word. It says the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart and his mind. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. Right? So going back to AI, it says hidden hatred, open speech. A nation can speak peace while planning war. And so we know through the spirit those so-called peace meetings are all one-sided and it's all bullshit. They want to go to war. They've been planning this war for decades, centuries maybe. Deceit within. The real plan is internal, not visible. Overlay, false flags, and manipulative provocations fit this pattern. Hatred masked by diplomatic language. Psalms chapter 55, verses 20 through 21, which we just read. Break down diplomatic language versus real intent, smooth words but drawn swords. Overlay, and that's in real time right now, man. You know that America in its negotiations is not giving these nations, and I'm not just talking about Iran, but these nations a fair shake, man. You know, their intent is dominance and war. That's why they changed it from the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Overlay, a smaller ally can talk peace and security while orchestrating events that force the larger ally into war. Okay, let's go there. Go to First Maccabees. I think it was 8:1, which it goes into the Romans, right? Rome's power, alliances, and far-reaching wars are described. So 1 through 4. It says, now Judas had heard of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves onto them, because the Romans were multicultural, and make a league of amity with all that came onto them, and that they were men of great valor. It was told him also of their wars and noble acts, which they had done among the Galatians, and how they had conquered them and brought them under tribute, and what they had done to the country of Spain for the winning of the mines of the silver and gold which is there. Basically they stole their resources. And this is Rome was Edomite empire at this time. It says, in that by their policy and patience they had conquered all the place, though it were very far from them, right, in distant lands. And the kings also that came against them from the uttermost part of the earth, till they had discomfited them and given them a great overthrow, so that the rest did give them tribute every year. Which is for the breakdown, it says empire drawn into many conflicts, Rome's alliances and treaties pull it into wars across many lands. Overlay shows how great powers become entangled in other nations' conflicts through alliances. Exactly the dynamic Jeremiah hints at with Babylon being drawn out. I'm not going to read both chapters 4 and 5, but I'll read the summary. It says, high-level summary. Wicked leaders use bribes, intrigue, and political maneuvering to bring foreign power into Jerusalem's affairs. Overlay. Internal actors can invite or provoke imperial intervention. Again, a smaller group pulling a larger power into conflict. Quotes. The book of Revelation 16. Slovakia. It says Armageddon or Harmageddon, which means mountain of troops. This is Revelation chapter 16, verse 13. And I saw three unclean spirits like frogs, which those three unclean spirits is dealing with Washington, D.C., or the Pentagon, which is the military aspect of Esau's Western world. Then you have the Vatican, which is the religious aspect of it. Then you have London, which is the financial aspect of it. And the reason why they're frogs, because of the croaking, the deception that they speak, which I made a video on that, which didn't receive too many views, I don't think, which, YouTube plays with the views, so who knows who's watching. But watch that video and I explain what the reason why is the frogs, right? It says, come out of the mouth of the dragon, which is basically Esau and his system, and out of the mouth of the beast, which is NATO and the EU, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, which is the Vatican. And going back to Esau and his system, starting with the Romans, the Greco-Romans, Salakia. For they are the spirits of devils working miracles, the miracles going back to their technology, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them to the battle of that great day of the Most High Almighty. Right. Through the technology, which the supreme of their technology is going to be the MOTB, the microchip. 15, it says, behold, I come as a thief, and blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon or Harmageddon, which translates to mountain of troops. Right, so going back to AI, spiritual level manipulation, unclean spirits influence kings into a final war. And those are the three that I mentioned. Overlay, behind false flags and manipulative politics is a spiritual pattern, deception, gathering nations to their own destruction. Jeremiah chapter 50 and 51 is Babylon's doom tied to this pattern. Now we tie it back, the least of the flock pattern in Babylon's destruction. So let's go to Jeremiah 50. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 9. It says, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon, aka America, a assembly of great nations from the north country, which is going to be led by Russia. And they shall set themselves in array against her. So they're going to be surrounding America in array against it. So to me, that would mean that the vast majority of the American military has been destroyed in order for these countries to align themselves against America to shoot their missiles on it. It says, from thence she shall be taken. Right. So when they align themselves in battle array against America, that's when they're going to shoot their missiles. Their arrows, which is the nuclear missile, shall be as a mighty expert man, none shall return in vain. And Chaldea shall be a spoil, which are those rich elite bankers. All that spoil her shall be satisfied, because they reap the treasures of the earth, and they're going to vomit up all the treasures of the earth, saith Yahweh, right? So going back to AI, it says assembly of nations. Babylon's fall comes through a coalition. So America's fall comes through a coalition, multiple nations involved. Overlay, the same network of alliances that Babylon used can become the network that destroys her. So not only is NATO going to flip, but Russia and its allies are going to join the flip NATO in destroying America as well, according to biblical prophecy. Jumping down to verse 29, it says, call together the archers, those that shoot nuclear missiles against Babylon, aka America, all ye that bend the bow, camp against it round about. So America is going to be surrounded. Let none thereof escape. So nothing's going to be able to come in and nothing's going to be able to come out. You know, so you people don't, your pride has deceived you. You know, you don't understand the pending destruction that's going to happen to your glory. It says recompense her according to her work. So pay her back according to all the shit they've done, she's done. According to all that she have done, do unto her, for she have been proud against Yahweh. So these damn devils been proud against the Heavenly Father, man. You know, thinking that his creation wasn't good enough. You know, putting hell on his people, death and destruction, slavery, great robbery and murder, and thievery. You know, polluting the earth. You know, lying and turning things upside down. You know, they're going to be punished for it, man. They're not exceptional. It says, recompense her according to her work, according to all that she have done, do unto her. For she have been proud against Yahweh, against the Holy One of Yashar'Allah. Therefore shall her young men fall in the streets, and all her men of war shall be cut off in that day. So all of her men of war shall be cut off in that day, saith Yahweh. And this has already happened, man, in another dimension. Behold, I am against thee, O thou most proud, saith Yahweh of armies or hosts. For thy day is come, the time that I will visit thee, and the signs are there. And the most proud shall stumble and fall, and none shall raise him up. And I will kindle a fire in his cities, and it shall devour all round about him. Which that fire is going to be nuclear fire, man. And going back to AI, it says, pride as the root. Babylon's pride and oppression bring judgment. Archers and surrounding. Babylon is encircled. And this didn't happen to ancient Iraq. No escape from the consequences of her wars and policies. Jeremiah 51, 6 and 8. It says, flee out of the midst of Babylon. This is Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 6. It says, flee out of the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his soul, which means to be taken up into the ships and really starts with having this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Because if you don't have that, damn sure ain't gonna be taken up into no shit. It says, "Be not cut off in her iniquity." And having the wisdom and knowledge and understanding, you don't involve yourselves in the things in which this world upholds and value. That's contrary to the scriptures. It says, "For this is the time of Yahweh's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense, a payback." So everything that these damn devils are doing is going to be paid back. Babylon had been a golden cup in Yahweh's hand that made all the earth drunken with its ideologies, its philosophies, its lies, its policies, its science. It says the nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. And you see them showing that them being mad, man. Verse 8, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, cry, scream, take balm for her pain, which balm is like ointment to heal you. If so be she may be healed. And what they're trying to do to heal Babylon is introduce AI, which is going to fail miserably. It says in Breakdown Time Block Judgment, there is a set time when Babylon's cup is full. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. The fall is sudden, even if the build-up is long. And that is scriptural too, though it tarry, wait for it. And then it also says, "Behold, I beheld Satan as lightning falling from heaven." Overlay, it says, "Once Babylon is fully entangled in unjust wars and bloodshed, the judgment hits quickly." So you can always just replace Babylon with America. Let me see. So verse 11, 24, and 26. So going down to 11, it says, "Make bright the arrows, gather the shields. Yahweh have raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes," which this is the Russians. "For his device is against America," or Babylon, "to destroy it." So the Heavenly Father is not with America. He's about to destroy America, because it is the vengeance of Yahweh, the vengeance of his temple. His temple is his people. So you think you can hang, you can cannibalize, you can feed infants to alligators, you can put cities underwater, you could bomb cities, you could turn cities into parks, you could tear apart families, you could have brothers and sisters or mothers and sons sleeping with each other, all the atrocities that you've done to his temple. You're going to have to pay. And just like a kid, they plug their ears to the things that they don't want to hear. And that's Esau. So the best thing that he could do is say, "Oh, the Bible is not real, it's just a fairy tale." Jumping down to verse 24, it says, "And I will render unto Babylon and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea all their evil that they have done in Zion," which means monument. I believe it's to Zion, "in your sight, saith Yahweh. Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, destroying government, saith Yahweh, which destroys all the earth. What other nation is going around destroying the earth? You know, nobody even talks about the million Iraqis that just lost their life in the past 20 years. And I will stretch out my hand upon thee and will roll thee down from the rocks and will make thee a burnt mountain. So America's going to get completely destroyed, man. It's going to be a burnt mountain. And they shall not take of thee a stone for a corner, nor a stone for foundations, but thou shalt be desolate forever, said Yahweh. So America is never going to be inhabited again. Going back to AI, it says, raised up adversaries, the Most High stirs other nations to strike Babylon. I will render unto Babylon all their evil that they have done in Zion. Babylon's treatment of Israel is repaid. America's treatment of the true children of Israel is going to be repaid, man. You know, and all you women that, you know, thought you were doing something being with this damn devil, yeah, you're going to be looking real stupid in that day, man. Overlay the same alliances and military machinery America used are turned back on her. Jeremiah going to 41 through 63. Okay, jumping down to verse 41. It says, how is Shishak taken? How is the praise of the whole earth surprised? How is Babylon become an astonishment among the nations? You know, jumping down to 63. It says, and it shall be when thou hast made an end of reading this book that thou shalt bind a stone to it and cast it into the midst of Euphrates. And thou shalt say, thus shall Babylon sink, and shall not rise from the evil that I will bring upon her, and they shall be weary. Thus far are the words of Jeremiah. So the Most High, he's finna destroy this place, man. AI breakdown, Shishak equals coded name for Babylon. The glory of the empire becomes a horror story. Sinking imagery. Babylon is like a stone thrown into the Euphrates. No recovery. Overlay, once the least of the flock has drawn Babylon into the fatal conflict, both the instigator and the empire are under judgment, desolate with them. It says Amalek as a least of the flock type within Edom and the Babylon overlay, putting the chain together. Now, Edom is the so-called white man, started calling himself white in 1681, right? It says Edom is judged with the phrase, least of the flock shall draw them out. Jeremiah 49:20. Edom is made small among the heathen, Obadiah verse 2. Amalek is a branch of Edom, first of the nations, in hostility against the weak. Genesis 36, Numbers 24, Deuteronomy 25. Typological read without modern labels. Amalek, which is those Israelis, so-called Jews, a hyper-aggressive, militarized subset inside Edom. Edom is the true identity of you so-called white people, you Europeans, you Americans. It says small in size, big in hostility and manipulation, least of the flock. A small, cunning, militarized nation faction that can provoke and drag a larger empire into war. And that's what they're doing with America as, we speak. Babylon pattern, the same least of the flock shall draw them out formula is applied to Babylon. Jeremiah 50 and 45. Babylon is the big empire, but it is drawn out, provoked, entangled, and finally destroyed. Jeremiah chapters 50 and 51 show Babylon's doom as tied to its wars, pride, and oppression with other nations, including smaller ones involved in the setup and the strike. So the overlay you're tracking is a smaller, militarized deceptive nation, Amalek type, least of the flock, embedded within the larger Edomite Babylonian power structure, right? Which is the Western world, and Babylon is America. It says uses provocation, ambush, and deceit, false flag style tactics to pull the larger empire into conflict. The Most High allows this as part of his counsel and purposes. End result, both the instigator and the empire with them are judged and made desolate. And that's the end game for America, to be judged and made desolate. So this is from SeymourRocks.com, a history of Israeli false flags against the U.S. Let's see. Let's see what this is.
How did you convince Hezbollah to buy this?
Well, obviously, they didn't know that they were buying it from Israel.
Who did they buy it from, or think they were buying it from?
We have an incredible array of possibilities of creating foreign companies that have no way being traced back to Israel, shell companies over shell companies who affect the supply chain to our favor. We create a pretend world. We are a global production company. We write the screenplay. We're the directors. We're the producers. We're the main actors. The world is our stage.
How did you convince?
That's what it is. What does it say? Mossad, by way of deception, thou shalt do war. So yeah, let me see.
But the two cases that really got us, first of all, there was a false flag attack in London in 1994, where a car bomb exploded outside the Israeli embassy in the centre of London.
Now, I remember this vaguely. This is, we're talking 14 years ago.
It's a long time
but
ago.
But it was huge at the time. I mean, it was a huge worldwide story.
Yeah. In fact, there'd been an earlier attack against some Jewish interest section in Buenos Aires earlier that year as well. Similar sort of MO, modus operandi, with a car bomb driven and parked outside that exploded. Very minor injuries, that was all. Okay. Nobody was killed. And it was a very sophisticated device. It appeared to eat itself, eat all the forensics. Now, this is very, very rare. Even the IRA, which is a very sophisticated terrorist organisation, could not make bombs that effective. So it looked like a, sort of fairly technical person had put that together. But what emerged from that, the senior MI5 officer who was in charge of the investigation into it and had seen all the evidence but also all the intelligence, which isn't necessarily admissible in court, wrote his formal assessment at the end of the case. And he said he reckoned that Mossad, the Israeli External Intelligence Agency, had bombed their own embassy. A sort of controlled explosion outside the embassy. And as I said, that was a senior MI5 officer. That was his formal verdict. If you read that on the internet now, you would say that sounds like some mad conspiracy theory. But it wasn't. This was the official position of MI5. And he said that they did it for two reasons. One, they were always hassling MI5 for increased security around their embassy and other interests in London. Because, of course, London had a reputation of giving safe haven to Arab dissidents from around the world at that point. And MI5 kept saying, well, there's no reason to increase the threat assessment. You don't need extra protection. So letting off a controlled explosion outside, of course, they immediately got what they wanted there. But crucially, 2 innocent Palestinians were arrested, charged and convicted of conspiracy to cause that attack. And they were very active in a Palestinian support network in London, political campaigning for the people on the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. And they were gaining some traction in the media. They were getting quite a lot of support. So by arresting these people and framing them from the attack and sticking them in prison, the whole network just shattered and hasn't got back on its feet to this day. So that would be a clear political advantage.
Okay, I'm gonna read a few of them, but a lot of them we already know about 9/11. So it says the Israelis have a long history of using false flag terrorism against the United States. In 1954, July, the Lavon affair, Israeli agents placed bombs in U.S. and British libraries and institutions in Egypt in a false flag operation meant to be blamed on the Muslim Brotherhood. 1967 June, Israeli aircraft and ships attacked the defenseless USS Liberty, killing 34 and wounding 171 with the intention of sinking the ship with no survivors so that the blame could be assigned to Egypt. So this is the same thing they're going to try to do to Iran, man, because these are dumb people that do the same shit over and over again. 1989, a truck bomb kills 241 Marines in their barracks in Beirut. Former Mossad agent Victor Ostrovsky says Mossad knew the details of the truck, the time, and the location of the bombing, but only gave a general warning to the Americans. A Nubilis Islamic Jihad group is blamed. Defense Secretary Casper Weinberger says U.S. has no knowledge who really did the bombing. This occurred 1 month after a single Marine stopped the Israeli tank column. Some former Marines believe Israel organized the attack. 1986 February, Mossad plants a radio relay device in an apartment in Tripoli, Libya, to send fake messages that appear to be from the Libyan government. U.S. intelligence is successfully tricked and President Reagan orders bombing of Libya. 1978, Israeli agent Arnon Milken's first film features a Boeing 747 crashing into the Pan Am building. Months before 9/11 produces a film episode in which remote-controlled airplanes hit buildings. 1979, July, Netanyahu Institute holds conference on terrorism calling the U.S. military intervention in Middle East. 1979, Isser Harel, founding chief of Israeli intelligence, predicts 9/11 attacks in New York City. 1982, February, Israeli Likud strategist Oded Yinon plan calls for the dissolution of Syria and Iraq and balkanization of all Arab states. 1983, Israel creates Foe for War on Terror under Ehud Barak. Israeli military intelligence begins arming and training anti-Western Hezbollah terrorists in Pakistan, including Osama bin Laden. 1987, 2 of Isser Harel's senior Mossad agents, Avram Shalom bin Duran and Zivi Malkin, get the security contract to World Trade Center. Port Authority cancels the contract when their criminal history is discovered. 1990, rejected by Port Authority due to criminal conviction in Israel, Shalom bin Dor goes to work for Jules Kroll. 1993, February, Zionist managed prosecution of World Trade City bombing. Israeli-American Michael Chertoff, U.S. attorney, for New Jersey plays key role in prosecution. Zionist Judge Michael Mukuse presides over case against Blind Sheik. FBI informant Iman Salim is paid $1 million for his testimony. Media leads public to believe that Muslims want to destroy the Twin Towers. 1993, after first WTC bombing, Kroll Associates gets security contract for the Port Authority and the WTC. 1994, after losing Saudi Pakistani support, the Israeli trained remainder of Hezb Islamist mergers into Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. 1998, December, Philip Zelikows Catastrophic Terrorism Study Group publishes report Imagining Transforming Event in Foreign Affairs, CFR. Co-authors Ashton Carter and John Deutsch work for Global Technology, I said it right the first time, Partners, an exclusive affiliate of Rothschild N.A. So there you go, the Rothschilds. 1999, Hugo New creates a global trading division headed by two veteran Feroz metal traders from Mark Rich and Glencore AG in Switzerland. A lot of expense and effort is spent to prepare a network to export scrap iron to Asia. While its price is at the lowest level in 50 years, Hugo Nua and the state share the cost of dredging the Claremont Channel to allow large ocean-going ships to Asia. 2000 September, a neocon group, Project for the New American Century, suggests that a catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor may be necessary to facilitate the process of transformation. They call for the U.S. military policy. The signers of PNAC document, including Dick Cheney, were in senior positions of the Bush administration in 2001. 2001, Israeli Mossad company ICTS controls security screening at U.S. airports on 9/11. Directors include Yair Shamir, son of notorious Israeli terrorist Yitzhak Shamir. 2001, Israeli intelligence creates false histories for alleged hijackers. Israeli spies posing as art students live near hijacker patsies. Duplicate documents are used to create false histories, standard procedure for Mossad false flag operations. You know, and even Rockefeller said they'll be fighting someone in caves. It'll be a never-ending war. No, there's not going to be a real deciding, victor. Right? 2001, Ronald Lauder manages Governor George Pataki's privatization scheme, which includes WTC property. Lauder funds Lauder School of Government, Diplomacy and Strategy at Mossad Center, IDC, where Israeli Major General Daniel Rothschild heads Institute for Policy and Strategy. 2001, July 24th, Larry Silverstein gets lease for World Trade Center. Silverstein obtains lease through fellow Zionist agent Lou Eisenberg, chairman of the Port Authority. Silverstein and Eisenberg are both members of the UGA board, a major Zionist fundraising organization. Since 1996, Silverstein has close contact with Netanyahu. Every Sunday afternoon, Netanyahu calls Silverstein. Silverstein immediately raises rents by 40% for the few tenants he has. September 11th, Ehud Omar, Israeli deputy prime minister, is on a unreported visit in New York City. Why is it secret? While all civilian planes are grounded at 4:11 p.m., a El Al Boeing 747 takes off from JFK bound for Tel Aviv. The flight is authorized by the direct intervention of the U.S. Department of Defense. 9/11, Alex Brown, a firm with ties to Israeli military intelligence and Yara Shamir's company, Cytex, has many of the suspicious put options. Buzzy Krongard, executive director of the CIA, headed AB until 1998. His wife works for Rothschild Asset Management. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end it on that. But you see, man, you see how this devil gets down. I don't even know if this video is gonna stay up, but it'll be all through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahshua Shem Kakodash. If it does, man. But with that, hope at least one brother of the elect was edified, and I'm gonna say shalom.